So we throw around a lot of opinions on sports fans on the show, but we are about to say hello to two gentlemen who have actually studied it from a very academic standpoint. Let me introduce Dr. Andy Billings and Kenon Brown from the University of Alabama. Dr. Billings is the Ronald Reagan Chair of Broadcasting. He's also the co-director of the Beyond Sports Initiative, and Kenon Brown is the director of the Institute for Communication and Research at the university. And gentlemen, thank you. I know both of you, so I'll try to make this as collegial as well. You're both close friends, and I have heard you talking about what you're about to share with us for some time. So let me start with you, Dr. Brown. What exactly is this? How did all this come about? And maybe give us the details of your initiative before we get into the results.
Yeah, Paul, thanks for having us this afternoon. So just tell you a little bit about the Beyond Sports Initiative here at the University of Alabama. We serve as a bridge between the academic study of sports communication and media and the sports industry. And what we're trying to do with our efforts is make academic research more accessible, but also more relatable to the industry. And our hope through these efforts is that we will together, along with sports professionals, actually train the next generation of sports professionals that are coming up through the University of Alabama and honestly colleges and universities across the nation. So we do this through four particular areas that we focus on. The first is sports media literacy. So helping students understand how to use data and research to actually talk about sports with, with knowledge and with understanding. Sport and technology is one of our areas. And not only do we look at social media through that, but we also look at the impact of things like artificial intelligence and virtual reality on the fan experience. We look at video gaming and esports, which, is a rapidly growing area within sports and is becoming a lot more and more mainstream. And finally, we look at the impact of fantasy sports and sports gaming on the industry as well. Now, we do this through two major efforts. The first is the Alabama Summit on Sports and Gaming, which we actually had last year, where we bring in a host of professionals and academics together to have debates about some of the topics that we end up studying in what is the Alabama Report on Sport and Gaming, which is what we're going to talk about today. And with the report, we have a lead study, which Andy is going to talk about here in just a second, but we also have a research study devoted to each of the four focus areas that we have as well.
So, Dr. Billings, this report is about to come out. I know these are not things that you just throw together on an academic level. So, take us through the approach and what you've learned.
Sure, yeah. So the report will be out on May 7th. And for our lead study, we thought this was perfect for your show, Paul, because it pertains to college football. So without taking you into the weeds too much, it focuses on prospect theory, which basically we found in a number of different cases outside of sports that the pain of a loss weighs about double what you get from the pleasure of a victory. So we wanted to see, under that prospect, why would anyone be a sports fan? It seems like you'd be feeling pain more than pleasure there. So we surveyed 727 college football fans and asked them questions related to prospect theory. And we did this with Jan Bomer at the University of Michigan. And collectively, we asked them, for instance, first, what record would it take for you to call it a successful season? And the most common record given was 8-4. So once again, you needed twice as many victories as losses for it to be successful. So you need to have twice as much pleasure to overcome the pain of the 4 losses. But even more than that, we had some A-B scenarios I wanted to take you through, just 4 of them quickly, starting with problem 1, that I thought your audience might find appealing. So with this first one, for instance, we said, what would you rather have? Option A, your team wins 1 championship in your only college football playoff appearance. Option B, you're in the CFP 5 times, but you never win. So you could look at the option A as the one shining moment, and option B as the continual contender. And overall, when you look at the result, as we turn to that, the choice here was option A. Nearly 2/3 said they want one moment of glory more than to have, continually be part of the conversation. That was interesting to us to try to get a sense of, it's not necessarily that you have continued high moments. It's the chance of one pinnacle moment that was really useful. So then the next two scenarios I want to take you through. First, problem 2, we said, okay, you have a choice. Your records for the next 3 years are 4-8, 4-8, or 12-0, or you could continually be 8-4. Now, if you do the math here, you can see mathematically you should always choose option B. It's got 24 wins, whereas the other one has 20. But option A does give you that possibility of a national title. So when you turn to the results, what we actually find is, all right, people were rational in that they were opting for more wins, but still over 4 out of every 10 people said, I want the chance at one moment of glory. And notice here, we aren't even saying you win the championship. We're saying you are undefeated going into the playoff, and still you get this. Well, now, you have an ordering that goes on here. So here, what you'd have would be a 4-8, 4-8, and 12-0. Let's imagine instead that you get the 12-0 out of the gate. So when you move to problem 3, now instead of the delayed gratification, you have the instant chance of next year being undefeated. And when you look at that, you get a slightly different result. You still see a preference towards option B, but you actually see more people, 61 or nearly 62% actually preferred this option, which showed us that college football fans in general will take the instant gratification a little bit more than the delayed gratification, which to us was even more interesting because the other scenario gives you promise for the future. If in year 3 you're undefeated, then you're assuming year 4 might be pretty good as well. But instead here, that option, for the instant gratification was the most important. The last scenario I want to take you through, problem 4, pertains to a part of prospect theory called relative positioning, which we unpacked here as what about your rival? So here you've got option A, which is your team goes undefeated, but you lose to your rivals. So unpacked here in Tuscaloosa, it would be undefeated season, but you lose to Auburn in the national title game, as opposed to option B, which is you lose twice, but you still didn't lose as much as your rival. And then when you look at the result here, what people said was option B. Again, nearly 2/3 of the people would take the 2 losses simply because it's better than the rival and they don't want to be negatively compared to the rival. So that gives you a small taste of what's going on in the prospect theory study, but it really gives you a sense of how sports fans sometimes act rationally and other times have different motivations than what you'd expect just in terms of core wins and losses.
Talking to Dr. Billings and Dr. Brown. So one thing I'm curious about, because how broad was the sample in terms of the country? Because I know some of these answers couldn't have occurred on your campus.
Right. I believe the most represented team fan base, correct me if I'm wrong, Kenon, was Ohio State.
Yes, it was.
And even then, it was 4 or 5% of the overall sample. So this is a national sample. And you absolutely, like if you asked a group of Alabama fans, are you good with an 8-4 season and calling that a success? You're not going to get very many people who say yes. Meanwhile, in Vanderbilt or, I'm a Indiana University grad, we'll take 8-4 and be pretty pleased with that in the football realm.
So Dr. Brown, we do this on the fly here. You're familiar with the show from a scientific and academic approach, which clearly this is. It's not a Finebaum collar survey. What should we glean from the results?
Well, I think the thing that I think the solid conclusion we really came to with the report is that sports fans sometimes don't think rationally about wins and losses. And,
No.
and I think that's something that we expected, but I think the evidence is clear there.
And I would say too, Paul, it's that it's not just the wins and losses, it's whether they can add up to something that will result in a championship or even the possibility of a championship. So it's not enough for many sports fans to say we're always going to be in the game. Instead, you've got to at least have a chance of one time having that moment where you truly are the champion.
Well, I remember in 2010, I had a neighbor who was an Auburn fan, and that's when they won the first national championship in 50 years. And he told me, so I don't care if we ever win another one, as long as we win this one. And it doesn't matter if we go on probation or not, which they almost did. But the point being, that is ingrained in certain fan bases. Let me broaden this because there's so many conclusions to come to. Naturally, we think that we don't give fans too much credit on this show for being rational, thank goodness. But ultimately, are fans more? Are they getting more rational, or am I jumping to conclusions here?
I don't think that, I don't necessarily, I wouldn't jump to that conclusion that they are getting more rational. That's for sure. But what I would say, and I think this is kind of echoing what you were saying, is, we all expect that they would sacrifice seasons. They'll sacrifice years of winning seasons, decades of winning seasons, just to get that one shot in glory. So, I mean, if they get that one championship, then, and I think kind of the evidence with problems 2 and 3 really kind of gleaned into this. I mean, even with those, while the majority of fans still wanted the consistency in an 8-4 season almost every year, 4 and 10 fans said, look, give us an undefeated season, and you know what, we're okay with a couple of losing seasons after that.
Yeah, and I would say too, like lots of times we'll talk about why are we even playing these non-conference games against weaker opponents. Part of it's baked into this. If you got rid of those games and you had all conference games like we had during the pandemic, you're going to end up with some quality conference teams that are suddenly going 2 and 10 or 1 and 11 because they didn't have some of those baked in. So yes, those games sometimes, we call them pay for slay games, and sometimes you wonder why they even happen. Part of the reason they happen is because the baseline for a fan base is you need to win 2/3 of your games or else people are unhappy.
Yeah, and by the way, a month from today, we'll be heading to Destin, where the biggest conversation piece down there is going to be 8 versus 9 conference games. And if you're Alabama, you can look past playing an additional conference game. But if you're on the other spectrum, that may keep you out of a bowl game.
Absolutely, absolutely. And there's some fan bases, that if you get rid of all the non-conference opponents, they're going to have a pretty weak record that they're going to have a hard time explaining to their donors and to other fans.
Dr. Andy Billings and Dr. Kenon Brown, just it's fascinating stuff. I remember being with you guys in Tuscaloosa a couple of months ago, hearing about this, and I'm so glad we were able to at least touch on where you're going. It's nice to know that they're really, when it comes to studying sports, there are some rational academic understandings and exercises going on. I lose sight of that sometimes sitting here, guys.
All right, well, let's let Kenon plug the report then. It's coming out.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, first I'll say, Paul, you've always been a big supporter of us and the Beyond Sports Initiative, so I really do thank you for that, for sure. The report is going to be out sometime in like early to mid-May, just to kind of give you a little more detail about the report. So like we said, the prospect theory study is the lead study in the report, but we also have a study for each of the 4 focus areas. A team was led by Dr. Nikki Lewis at Indiana University, where she is looking at the impact of gender and endorsement value on NIL in college sports. We have a sport and tech study that is led by Sean Sadger, who was here at the University of Alabama, where we're looking at the impact of human-generated stories versus AI stories on sports fans' perceptions of the credibility of that information. We have Nick Bowman at Syracuse University and Brandon Harris here at the University of Alabama that looked at video gaming and esports, and they looked at the esports initiatives from the NFL and the NBA and the production value in those leagues and the things that they were putting out. And then finally, we have a report dedicated to fantasy sports and sports gaming that was led by Dr. Billings and also led by Brody Ruley at Miami of Ohio. And they were looking at some of the commonalities between fans that are interested in fantasy sports versus fans that are interested in sports gambling as well. So we're excited about the report coming out. One of the things that I'm the most excited about the report is that even though it is a report that was produced here at Alabama within the Beyond Sports Initiative, we have a lot of researchers from across the country that wanted to contribute and wanted to be a part of it.
Well, I can't thank you enough, and we all eagerly anticipate that. Dr. Billings and Dr. Brown, thank you for joining us from Tuscaloosa. We really appreciate it. We'll talk to you very soon as we continue here on a Monday afternoon. We'll get to your phone calls right after this.